Welcome to the In His Voice podcast, hosted by me, Rob L. Lowe, where we talk about things that deeply impact the lives of boys and men without ever bashing women. We talk about everything from the bedroom to the boardroom, from the playground to the stadium, and everything in between. And so before going forward, once you do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, share button. Be sure to tell folks about the podcast and hit the bell button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Well, today's episode, I got some really cool guests on the show. This is a show I've been waiting to have for a long time. As you know, I talk about the things that impact the lives of boys and men, but I'm also very sensitive that I am a man, and I need to be very cognizant of our female listeners and make sure that I'm providing an objective viewpoint while still uplifting men. As I said, we don't bash women on this show, and I don't allow women to come bash men on the show in the same light. And so I always try to provide content that is meaningful, that is genuine and authentic, but really at the end of the day leaves us whole and better off. And so on my show today, I have two guests, and I'm excited about it, man. This show is about exploring, things that impact men, young boys, really double standards in society, double standards in relationships, double standards in parenting, things that we typically don't talk about, kind of the taboo thing as it relates to men. But let's be honest, there are quite a few things out there that we tend to hold men accountable to, and they should be, but somehow we don't think that the same responsibility or accountability applies to women, and that goes vice versa. There's things that women are held accountable to that don't apply to men. The most common one is we say a man can go do and be with anybody he wants and it's okay, but if a woman does it, she's judged. And I think that's crazy. I think that is the most asinine comment that's out there. I think personally as a man, the idea of saying that a woman has to be domesticated, that's dumb. That idea of submissive, that she has to submit to him, like, depending on what your understanding of that is, but she ain't his servant. Right. I when I got married, I told my wife, I was like, you don't have to cook for me. I don't believe in that. That's just not what I subscribe to. You don't have to do my laundry. You don't have to do any of that. Right. If you want to do it and you like to do it, I'll eat because you do it. But that ain't what I expect when I come home. She is not my maid. She is my helpmate in life. And I really believe that. Yeah. And so, and if anybody knows me, knows I'm telling the truth, I live by that. But my guest on my show today, man, I'm so happy to have him. I have a really good friend of mine, Angelica Jiles, a fine and finer woman of the most amazing Zeta Phi Beta sorority. And then I have Miss Nemia Carmes, who is from the illustrious Ladies of Delta Sigma Theta. Yeah. She is also a podcaster and an author. And so, ladies, welcome to the In His Voice podcast. I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself and talk about some of the things that you're working on. Angelica, the floor is yours.
First one to go out. Hello, Angelica Jiles. A little briefing about me, but I'm not working on a book or anything just yet, but I'm very inspired to start a podcast. I just don't know what to talk about, maybe.
Man, you got to do it. It's liberating. I'm telling you.
Do it. Okay. All right. We'll talk some more about that offline. Excited about being here today. Anything to do with helping and uplifting the community. I am the second vice president of my chapter here in Indianapolis, Indiana, over scholarship. We have scholarships available. So hopefully you will present that QR code I just sent you. It's a code for the scholarships we have available, and everything is due up to March 31st, 2024. And also we have a step show coming up in March 9th. We still recruiting for teams to be part of our step show. We are looking statewide, region-wide. Anybody want to be part of? There's cash prices up to $2,500. Again, this is to raise money for a scholarship and for our IPS schools. It's a scholarship to supply IPS students. So
and your chapter is based where? Because remember, this is international. So where?
Right. Indianapolis, Indiana, Iota Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated.
All right. I got mad love for Zetas, man. So my wife's an AKA.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I come from a family of AKA women as well. One more thing, I sent you, and you probably send this later on, for our international scholarships too. That's available to anybody.
I'm gonna drop all that stuff here. Whatever you send me is going to be showing up on the screen.
Right on. There you go.
All right. Miss Nemia.
Hi there. Hi there. First of all, I want to start by just thanking you for the invitation and being part of what I feel is a very important conversation. I am Nemia Carmes. I am the host of High Heels and Lipstick Conversation. You can find me on YouTube, and I'll share all of my social media platforms, so on and so forth. I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. But most importantly, I'm a woman of God. I am a wife. I am a stepmom. I am a woman, a Black woman who feels very deeply and passionately about her community. So thus one of the reasons why I am happy that we are having this conversation. And then you also shared that your platform is not one where you bash women. I don't do that on my platform. I don't bash men. It's a women-centered platform, but I also don't allow that type of speech and language and attitude and behavior simply because it doesn't do anything to unite us as a community
Right.
of women and men. And so I'm all about unity and seeing us come together and resolve issues that impact us the most. So I thank you for allowing me to be part of the conversation.
Listen, ladies, thank you for being here. I mean, there's so much we're going to probably go down this rabbit hole and unpack. But you know, offline before we started filming, I talked about why I wanted to do this show. And here's where it started from. Of course, the podcast and his voice. But I can't help, I get discouraged because I look on social media, and if I see a woman give praise to a man, right? Says we got to uplift men. You'll see
Right.
you'll see men be like, "Oh, thank you, queen, protect her, she's beautiful." But
Mhm.
you'll see women start bashing her. Like literally
Mhm.
bashing her, like, no, they ain't jack, they ain't this, they gonna cheat on it, they're gonna do all those things. And it becomes this generalization. And the same thing when you see men speak highly of a woman or talk about supporting a Black queen or just a woman in
Mhm.
general of any race, you'll see women be like, thank you, king, thank you, brother, thank you for uplifting us. And then you'll
Mhm.
see all these men be like, they ain't this, you need to just run through them. And I'm like, man, how did we get there?
Yes.
How
Mhm.
do we get to this place where it's okay to not just bash, but people take their own personal trauma and then they
Mhm.
project it on a whole
Mhm.
gender or group of people, whether that's
Mhm.
race or sexuality. They take their experiences. And we've all
Mhm.
had some type of experience in life. But for me to say, because I had bad relationships in the past, that all
Mhm.
women are bad, that's
Yeah.
crazy. And you know,
Yeah.
the saying hurt people hurt others, right? That's where it comes from. And I was fortunate enough to go to therapy for the first time
Mhm.
at 41 or 42. And for me, that started unlocking the process.
Yeah.
But you know, Nemia, your book,
Mhm.
your podcast,
Mhm.
Angelica, you know, we go back years now, and we talked about, you know, the desire to uplift the community and you know, and then being members of the Nine. I'm an alpha, right? And so there comes a responsibility because historically our organizations were about, you know, uplifting families and
Yeah.
communities, right?
Yep.
Not just the members of the organization. It was like families and communities. But as
Mhm.
ladies, what do you see? You know, what do you see has happened to our willingness to support, you know, the opposite sex? What do you see?
Well, you hit the nail dead on the head. It's the fact that a lot of women have past traumas, or how we said it back in the day, more baggage than anything, more baggage that they haven't even uncovered just
Yeah.
yet. And typically, it may project it in other folks' relationships. Like if you happen to, like, let's say if I was type to always been into my girlfriends about everything that I was going through, girl, you should leave him, let him go. You know, all instead of maybe giving sound advice or just prayer or none at all, you know, most of the time I have a couple of girlfriends that's negative like that. So I already know in my mind, okay, I can't come to her with this because she's going to tell me, hey, girl, you better hurry up and leave him, so you won't have to deal with it, whatever the situation is. There's so many females that I don't, unfortunately, I'm not around a lot of females that male bash That's bad
Yeah.
space, bad energy to me. But I could never be in that space because a lot of choices that I made in my past was because of me mainly, and I own them. Sometimes you have some females that just don't even know how to own whatever issues they might have had, and they say, oh well, it was because, well, my stepdaddy slapped me or touched me or whatever the case may be. They get in another relationship, get in a relationship, it becomes toxic based on what happened to them in the past. And that goes back to my spiritual side of things. They lack deliverance, especially in those sensitive areas of their lives, So in my perspective, and being that I have brothers, I don't have any sisters, I'm very sensitive to the needs of men. And when I hear, certain things that happen to my brothers, they get almost traumatized. It's like, hold on a second, I'm really trying to be with this lady and spend time with her and tell her she's a queen and she's beautiful. And the whole time she can't even take a compliment. And I'm like, that lets you know there's something deeper there. It's up to you to decide if you want to continue that relationship.
Right.
Go ahead, sis.
Yeah. And just listening to Angelica, and she talked about the traumas. One of the things I think we sometimes fail to acknowledge, and you said, Robert, you said, how did we arrive here? I think we evolved as a community, right? So if you look back at our history as a people, we have trauma as a people, right? Like we're um, post-traumatic slave syndrome. We've had traumas as a community. We've had systems that have oppressed us as a community, and that's just not Black men. That's not just Black women, but equally we've been oppressed in one way or another. And so I see evidence of where we have just unfortunately evolved, and evolve kind of gives it a positive term, but I probably devolved to this place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resentment towards one another,
Yeah.
right? So I hear Black men, and social media plays a big part in this.
Yep.
Podcast plays a big part of this. It's driving the way that we think and we feel about each other. So you see like the gender wars. And
Yep.
so I hear a lot of men talk about the feminist movement and how it is, shaped the minds of us as women. But then I also see, I'm a woman, so I understand how we arrived at a place where we
Yep.
were grasping for our independence, and because we were under the shadow and an umbrella. There was a point in time we couldn't get credit in our own name
Right.
unless we had a husband. So I just think time has brought us to this place. And social media, podcasts does not make it any better for us. And so we seem to just have this general resentment towards one another for whatever reason. And I have saw where women who, I'll say all day long, I don't bash men. I'm married to a man.
Right.
So for me to get on a platform and say certain things about men and Black men in particular would be wrong of me. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't banter and I won't go back and forth with brothers or whatever, or give my female perspective, because I have a strong female perspective.
Yeah.
But just overall, generally, it goes back to what Angelica said. People are living in their traumas. That as women in particular, sometimes we don't always acknowledge that we were bad at making choices. We made horrible choices in men in our past.
Yeah.
And that still fuels the resentment that we have, and vice versa. Sometimes men don't, acknowledge that they made bad choices
Yep.
in women. So I just think we've gotten to this place, and really social media, it started with Kevin Samuels, the whole Kevin Samuels phenomenon, where it's just back and forth. And it's really disheartening for me to see, because I'm like, we need each other. I think it's disheartening that we don't recognize our internal traumas, and we
Yeah.
don't recognize or acknowledge the traumas that we have accumulated as a community of people together.
You said something, and I think I was thinking that, but you said it. This didn't happen overnight.
It did.
So as I think about things that I see. I said this on another podcast, but I didn't say the second part. Women have been disadvantaged for over 100 years, right? So they're catching up. And while Black women have made strides, it looks like Black women are running things because it looks like that.
It looks like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's still only 35% of the Black owned businesses are women, right? 65% are still Black men.
Yeah.
Right. They
We're
still make
inequitably
less
paid.
money
Yep.
than Black men in most careers. There's still less Black female CEOs than there are Black male CEOs, right? We don't see that because there are at least 7 Black award shows that highlight Black women, and there are none that highlight Black men. None. Yeah. So what happens is men, especially young men, they grew up in a generation where they've only seen women be perceived as equal. So they don't have the context of like, man, do you know why this feminist movement is so strong and why they're because you weren't around when they couldn't, right? And so on the surface, you'll see, well, there's nothing for us, but you have to recognize that, well, hold on, there was nothing for them for a long time.
Right.
The flip side to that is for young women or women who see what we have all these things because we didn't have them. You're right. But do you realize what's happening over here for men who don't understand that? They feel like they're getting left behind.
Yeah.
And so what happens, it creates this dissension because it's very few people are taking the time to put both of those things into context. Yep. They're only seeing what's on the surface and they're having reactions to it.
Yeah.
And so now we see the success rate of Black women rising as it should. Let me be clear, as it should. They're the most educated group, even though they're not the most highly paid. They're the they're the fastest number of entrepreneurs, fastest group of new entrepreneurs, but they're still less than half of Black-owned businesses, and they're twice as less as their white counterparts.
Yeah.
Right. So we see that, but what happens, there's no one to say, but hold on. That same thing that got you here, we have to be careful because if we move too fast and we leave the others behind, in 50 years, we're going to be on the other side of this fence. Yeah. And then there's going to be this resentment for men or Black men or men of color.
Yep.
And then we'll get lost in like, we don't really need you. You didn't do anything for us. Because I think that's how Black men felt about Black women or men felt about women in general. I just need you to make sure when I come home, I got a meal. I got my house is clean. The kids are taken care of. You don't need to have an identity because I got one. Right. I grew up with with my grandparents who raised me, and my grandmother went to clean houses for a couple of white families, and she was in her 70s, and she would go clean houses 2-3 days a week. My grandfather had already retired. He'd be home. He'd go pick her up, and that it didn't sit well with me. I'm telling you, it did not sit. It hurt me to see my grandmother come home in her late 60s, early 70s with her feet swelling after cleaning someone's house. And my grandfather's at home, good dude. He worked his whole life, but I know it bothered him. And I was like, I said then that whenever I got married or whatever a woman had in my life, you ain't got to clean for me. You ain't got to cook for me. I don't want someone who even wants to be like that. I truly don't. Now, some people, that's their love language, and I have to honor. My wife loves to cook, and I eat because that's her love language for me. Yeah. But that ain't what I expect of her. She doesn't owe me that. She doesn't owe me doing laundry. She doesn't owe me to walk in the house and the house is clean. You know why? Because I ain't lazy. I've been doing laundry since I was 12 years old as a kid for the house, me and my sister. I've been doing dishes since I was 10 years old. My grandparents was like, yo, get in there, bust them suds. So I was raised differently. And I know I'm going around the subject, but this whole subject of how we got to this place and, this gender war. I love what you said because I didn't think of that term, but it is a gender war.
It's a gender war. Yep.
And rather than recognize how one group is being elevated while another group is being left out of the conversation, we got to figure out how do you keep them both? Because as men and as Black men, it is my responsibility to make sure that women get the credit for the work they deserve. It is my responsibility to make sure that the entrepreneur rate goes to 50% as opposed to 35%, right? And then let's talk about this, right? Double standards. Black men still account for the highest incarceration rate.
Yeah.
Black men are more likely to get killed by law enforcement. The suicide rate for Black men is 5 times that of Black women.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's talk about it. That mental illness. Yeah.
Right. We carry around this trauma. You know, Black men, where we reach, there was a study that I read somewhere, and I may quote it wrong. We reach the same likelihood of living to like age 68 or something, or age 70 as our counterparts if we can make it to the age of 40.
Wow.
If we can make it to the age of 40, then we have a higher probability of living to reach 70.
Yeah.
But prior to that, there's so many factors that put us at risk of not having a quality life. So we gave the backdrop. So let's go ahead and dive into this stuff that won't get me canceled.
I don't want you to be canceled, brother. No.
I don't want to get canceled.
This good stuff right here.
Right. And this is not to take away from women who experience true harassment or trauma, because it is real. It is absolutely real. As an HR executive, I have done tons of investigations where men have harassed women, where women have harassed women, right? That's something else we don't talk about. But studies show almost 19 to 20% harassment cases happen to men, but no one talks about it. Men get sexually assaulted too, but no one talks about it. So from your perspective, just on those topics, why do you think that is? Why do you think those things don't make it to the awareness wheel of people?
Yeah, I think if we look at the coming from myself as an HR professional as well, we think about the history of sexual harassment and how the law was put into place. So it was a result of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Well, it's during that time, obviously, a lot of times sexual harassment is attached to the power dynamic. During those times when it came into play, who was in power? Mostly the men were in power. And there were a lot of females who were executive assistants or secretaries, as they would call them. And so I just think history, unfortunately, has molded our minds to think that sexual harassment is a man thing because it's attached to the power dynamic. The man is the more powerful being. So there's no way that a woman could give subliminal, sexually explicit, use that language. But there are cases, I've investigated cases or been a part of cases where women they're a little bit more, I would say, sleek with it, at least the case that I investigated. So it's not as forthright or up in your face type of harassment, but there are increasing cases where women are the harassers or have been accused of harassing. And it's just unfortunate that we don't see that, we don't acknowledge that, because we historically, we tend to think of sexual harassment as a male dominated. And it is, if you look at the statistics and the numbers, but we don't see that there is that rise in women doing the same thing in the workplace.
It's the awareness factor now. I mean, it existed back then, but like you just said a moment ago, Rob, we just didn't talk about it. But now, since women are they're evolving, empowered. Then we had the Me Too movement. Okay. All those other cases and situations coming up. I can remember, I too am a HR professional, and I can remember investigating quite a few more women than men. I had a couple of guys, maybe, but it seemed like it was a high population of the women, and not necessarily harassing the men, harassing other women.
That's been the trend for me. I've been seeing that a lot.
That's been Yeah, it's definitely been trending very high, and it's like, okay, so who's the dominant one? Is it the one in the superior role? I had a situation where it was a subordinate that was sexually harassing the superior, the manager, right? It was the opposite, and then I had the reverse, and I'm just like, okay, so how do you weed that out? Like, I no longer look at it like it's a male problem, even though historically it is, but in today's society, that thing switched totally.
Yeah.
I had male on male sexual harassment
Yep.
before,
Mhm.
so it's not, I mean, because of the world has changed a lot,
Yes.
how do we evolve from that? I mean, is it fair? No, it's not fair at all, but it really depends on the case, the situation. If that person, and as an HR professional, do they have an open mind to look at every single angle? Does
Yes.
everybody get a word in? They have to listen to everybody's side, but sometimes we have our bias, those that are professional, they have their biases. But when you open-minded and know, like, hold on a second, this is trending opposite of what it used to be, you have to have that open mind and just know that, in the past it was like that. And you might have a background of dating multiple women or what have you. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of women that date multiple men. I used to be single once upon a time. I mean, I had fun. You do single things
Yeah.
when you're single.
Mhm.
I say, you already know she been on me years ago. But I'm just saying, you single, you do single things.
Mhm.
Now you're married and everything. Even if you, and the thing of it is, we're all nice looking people, obviously, professionals. Somebody, they look at you, even if you, like, if your aura is just naturally sexy, right? Just like my
Mhm.
girl, Nemia. She walked past you, she has that aura, you know what I'm saying? And automatically,
Well, thank
like my
you.
husband. What? She's just natural.
Yeah.
Or like Rob, this thing he do with his eyebrow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's a habit.
Yeah. People take it the
Right.
wrong way.
Right. And he's looking at me funny.
Yeah.
No, that's just Rob. He just got the eyebrow action going. That's who he is. But is again, we're going with that perception. People that have that baggage, they may be coming to work with it. They may have, went through something at home, whether it's male, female now, because there's been men that I've
Yeah.
also investigated that's been sexually assaulted or get assaulted
Yep.
on a regular basis by their
Yep.
wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they come in with that angry boss,
Yeah.
like, because that's their power, I have to redirect that person because, okay, you losing a lot of people. We need to talk about why. You're
Yeah.
evil because there's some things going on at home. Okay, use your EAP program. I don't mean to go there on the HR side, but you
No,
know what
go
I'm
ahead.
saying? We'll talk to somebody about this thing.
Yeah.
Let's figure this thing out because typically it's the power trip. I want to show that I have some kind of power, and they, pretty much project that in the office. And then the females end up hating them and so forth because he has this hatred towards females because what's going on in the household, what happened to him in the past, or mama might have beat him, whatever cases of abuse it is.
Yeah.
Therapy has blessed me.
Yeah.
Period. And the mental health thing has to be addressed. And I love it, Nemia, you brought that up about that mental health because that's the issue that I see that a lot of people of color, not just Black men,
Mhm.
have a hard time talking about. And
Yeah.
now seeing a new generation of our children and then now grandchildren later, that are still dealing with the same issues we may have dealt with, but now it's on another level. I mean,
Yeah.
now we have social media, some of the videos, and I'm just not learning about this, so y'all forgive me. I'm just now seeing some of these celebrities, they're doing, devil worshiping and,
Mhm.
whatever they believe in is all of this stuff. And then my kids came to me, Mommy, I don't think we should be watching this because you have this certain celebrity,
Yeah.
making out with the devil,
Yeah.
versus we were growing up, we were
That's for real.
like,
I never know that.
okay,
That's literally a trend right now. People are having videos
yes,
of
Oh,
the devil,
Little Nas X. Mhm. Look him
and
up on YouTube. Mhm.
and the girl, and I really liked her too. What's her
Doja
name?
Cat.
Doja Cat. She's a
Yeah.
demon. She's with a demonic. I seen this video
Yeah.
and I have to, I have to throw some blessed oil on the screen. Seriously, she's the upside down sex demon thing, and kids see all of that. So they fantasize. They showing this big thing like, ooh, not only is sex magic, but now we can look good and be the devil and be sleep. Not no lie. I mean, you have to really like put that in your kids or whoever else you working with and saying, look, right or wrong, what have you. So just to keep it, safe, our younger generation are now exposed to the things that we might have thought that may have been negative. It's
Yeah.
it's something like, embrace, that's her spirituality. She feel like she's an upside down a demon that's crawling up on the ceiling and everything, and she's a sexual demon. And she even says it on one of her songs that I'd rather have fame. You know what I'm saying? I don't care. I'd rather be in whatever, the Illuminati, what have you. I'd rather have all these things than to be just a mediocre person. So I was like, well, I mean, it now is. Go ahead.
Okay, this is gonna go left too, because I like this now.
Okay.
Let's go left. Let's go left.
We talk about, like we were young too, right? So the generation before us probably said, that generation right there, like they off the chain, right? And so, and the repercussions of our generation is this generation.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the repercussions of our generation is this generation. So the things we did, how we thought, the way we, I got to go have more. Yeah. So then we created this generation.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation with some other folks, and I was like, I hope this generation recognizes there's consequences of their actions. There's consequences of these trends, that these things are happening. They can't see it now, but it will affect society 30, 40, 50 years down the road. This fad will have repercussions, right? Whether it may affect at a family level, it may affect at a community level, it may even affect at a country level, right? Because there are other countries be like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And the US is like, oh yeah, go ahead. Whatever that is, right? I'm not here to preach beliefs, but just know there's consequences of actions. I told my daughters this. I said, when they went off to college, I gave them the same advice. I said, you can date whoever you want. Guy, girl, black, white. I have my own preferences, but I have to allow you to live your life. I said, here's my only requirement though. Don't you ever come and tell me you date someone of a different race or a different gender because ain't no good ones in another.
I do not like that.
You can't come tell me, well, the reason I'm dating white men is because ain't no good black men. The reason I date a woman because ain't no good men. You can't come tell me no crap like that. You can date who you want, who makes you happy, but don't you dare come to tell me some generalization about a whole group of people to justify what you found in one person. Right? And then the second thing I told him is, look, you have a right to live your life the way you want, but don't put too much emphasis on sex. And what I mean by that is you can do what you want. Don't let society's double standard tell you how you have to live your life. There's a way I want you to live, but don't think that because if a man waits for it, it means he loves you. But it also don't think that if he didn't wait for it, it doesn't mean he doesn't love you. Right? So that whole thing about they can't express themselves, I was like, look, man, times are different. I have to allow you to be you, but just make sure whatever decision you make, you need to be willing to live with.
You need to stand on it. Yeah.
You need to be willing to live with. So I'm telling you right now, these are the things as a father, I'm giving you advice. But whatever decisions you make, just be willing to live with it. Because it comes with a consequence, right? It comes with a price. We think about going back to this double standard. It's great because I love the fact I forgot to mention we're all HR professionals. So we have this view that maybe most people don't get to see. But we see in our professional life double standards, the biases, what happens. I get to see real life the perception of being labeled as an angry black woman. I get to see it. I get to see how
that's
a
real.
black woman shows an expression in a meeting, how people go, she must be angry. Like, no, she's just serious. There's not an anger bone in her body, but her facial expression is like she's very intentionally paying attention. She's very intent on what's happening in the conversation, but she's not angry. But it's read that way. Same thing with black men. I'll tell a funny story. We talk about harassment, right? I'll go back to that. At one of my jobs I had a guy, and literally he told one of his subordinate females, yo, you should come to you should come in for Halloween dressed as a maid, but wear a really short maid outfit. He told her that. They came and told me. I went back upstairs. He left a note on his desk saying I resigned because he knew. It wasn't no gray area. He knew.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it happens. The craziest, he knew. Here's another one, though. I had another one where a manager, a female manager, brought a female employee to my office. It's like, Rob, I need you to hear this story. Well, what happened? She said, such and such, it's spreading rumors about them sleeping together. And she said, I've never been with him. He's hideous. He's damaging my reputation. I said, okay, let's do an investigation. Let's figure out what this is about. I told the young lady, I got her statement. I told them she could leave. I told the manager, I said, listen, the fact you came here and passed judgment is a problem. But Rob, like, she's crying. You saw that. And what he did to her, I said, nope. You're going to listen to every interview that I do throughout this investigation, right? Yeah. And if what happened, then we'll deal with everyone who says it. Now, she said nothing happened. She said, we go through the investigation. The guy who's been accused, long story short, comes in with a video like, yo, this is consensual. I'm in her bed. I'm looking up at her mirror. He's recording it. Come to find that there was another guy she had messed around with at the company, and that came out. And the manager's sitting in there, and the other guy was, he had to tell his side of the story. I said, because I heard that this happened with you, and what's the, he's like, yeah, but we're all friends with her boyfriend, and we don't want anybody to know. So the girl comes back in, the manager is sitting there, and when I'm doing my investigation, I said, please know this is confidential. If any of this thing gets out, please know that's a terminable offense. So you're not allowed to share anything that comes out. So the girl comes back in, the manager sitting there. She's like, I heard things have been said, and I said, what has been said? Who's told you they talked to me? Because that's confidential. But if someone said something, please let me know, because they shouldn't have been saying what was discussed in my thing. Well, these things were said. Long story short, the guy that she accused, we had to write him up because he reached out to her at work through the company phone and was like, yo, are we going to talk about it? So he did bother her, and she told him, no, don't reach out to me. Right. But we had to go discipline her because this whole story she concocted and she left out that really assassinated his character. And there was these other things. And the manager who was sitting there was like, Rob, I'm so sorry. I said, no, this happens a lot. This happens a lot. You're not uncommon. This is what happens. People, like you said, Angelica, they bring their bias into it. And me as a Black male, I'm not exempt from that too, because when I hear stories of people get discriminated against, I have to check. I have to be very conscious and check that initial reaction, because I can relate to it, but I have to check it. And I have to go, look, my job is to be objective. I can't buy into what I feel right now. I may have a thought where I think, but I've done this enough times to know that there's at least 3 sides to every story, right? Not 2, 3. And then you got to go figure out what that is. So going back to the double standards, especially as HR people, what are some of the things that you've seen that are double standards that maybe benefit men that don't benefit women?
Benefit men. I can
give you some, like this ideal that sometimes that if the man says it, then it has a stronger weight behind it, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, oh, he's results oriented, or he's assertive and she's a bitch.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a lot of times you see certain characteristics in men that are appreciated, and we describe that man in a positive nature. But if you see those same characteristics in a woman, then they're given a negative, like it's a negative trait. So if she's assertive, if she's aggressive, I myself have been told that my communication style is a little direct. And so and then hence, if that was a man, then he would be appreciated because he talks directly. He talks with a certain confidence and so on and so forth. And so honestly, you still see that. And you mentioned earlier about Black women. I think people do not understand Black women in the corporate world, the amount of either code switching we have to
Yeah.
endure
Yeah.
personally, or the amount of scrutiny we have to live under. It's almost like we have to change ourselves when we go into the workplace, because anything that is seen in a negative light, our tone, the way, if we get a little frustrated, if we come across too confident, so on and so forth, we're automatically going to be termed the angry Black woman. And it is a difficult line to toe day to day
Yeah.
for most Black women who are
Yeah.
in corporate America.
And just the way, in many cases, if a Black woman wears her hair a certain way,
Mhm.
they automatically assume that it comes with an attitude with it. Like, you like, because she wore her hair that way, you just assume that she's angry, or
Yeah.
she's going to be dominant, or she's going to be impatient. Like, and those are the things that I learned as a Black man
Mhm.
watching it. Like, I was like, where'd that come from?
Mhm.
And then you'll
Interesting.
notice like those little biases, like, oh, I saw her hair, I liked her hair. Did you see how she wore her hair? And the person's not even in the room, but those are the conversations people would walk in the room and say, did you see such and such hair today? And I would look at it, I'm like, yeah, well, what about it? And I would just call it out, like, what about it? Oh, nothing. It's like
Listen.
really, really nice, but it caught your attention.
Black women's hair is a topic probably in every office where there are people of other cultures. I can remember a time working for an organization, and at that time I had red hair, and it was,
Yeah.
very big, and natural, and it was always a conversation starter. I've been in places where I've been asked, "Can I touch your hair?"
Yeah.
When I first started in the position that I am now, one of the ways that the woman introduced me as she was walking around introducing me to all of the staff, this is Nemia. She always changes her hair, so her hair is never going to be the same, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's those unconscious biases that people don't realize. And as much as we, going back to like our initial conversation, as much as we have advanced as Black women in education and entrepreneurship, we still have a lot of battles that we're fighting, um, in the workplace.
Right. Here's a story. So I started this thing. I started going by AJ, like on my signatures and things like that at work. I was like, okay, AJ. AJ, they a lot of times they don't know that it's Angelica Jiles. If I'm new to an organization, I've been going by that without even putting my picture up. I have a naturally deep voice. I
Yeah.
embrace my deep, right?
Mhm.
But if I'm in a meeting and I'm real serious and things like that, which a lot of times I am, my voice goes into a stern male strong voice like this. I know it actually scares a few people. And then I'm labeled as, oh my God, that AJ, she's angry. She has strong male energy. That's a thing now.
Mm.
So I have strong male
Wow.
energy because I have a strong, deep voice and I enunciate my voice. So what happened in my world is like, it was more like what was I? I was in a meeting conducting some kind of training. And you know how you have those few people that was like, no, that's not true, because I've always done it like XYZ. And then with me being the leader that I am, I come back with not a problem. This is where, I point, use the point of reference and so forth. Okay, I understand you've been doing this way for X amount of years, but here is the new process and we're going to execute it because this came from the top, from top down. We cascaded down and so forth. But then the perception is, oh, well, either she must be, and this has happened to me too. Oh, she's gay or lesbian, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be.
Mm.
They sexualize, my voice
Sexualizing.
and
Mhm.
stand. You have to stand, have to be powerful in your position. Okay. Whereas from a male perspective, when it's a guy doing the exact same thing I'm doing, their voice might get a little bit stern. Oh, well, he's okay. He's prior service.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
prior
Oh
service.
man, I heard that one.
Mhm.
I
Like
mean,
it's
that's just the way
okay.
he is because of his military background, or
Yeah.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah.
But I
That,
come from a family of men. You know, I had, you know, my grandmother and my mom, a few of my aunts, but the men was the most dominant group, and all my brothers, very well dominant. So, of course, I picked up a lot of my assertion and my directness and everything from being around them. I had to learn how to soften up. I had to learn. It took a while. It took me to get in the church and all that other stuff to soften up a bit.
Yeah.
But I was also told when I first got into leadership, um, double standard, since we still on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Watch your tone, watch your face. Because my face was always what they call it, a resting B face.
Yeah.
the rest of his face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Resting. Yeah, it's resting all the time, like, you know. But then I was told by my female superior, she's looking at me, you need to change your face, you need to soften up. But I'm like, that's no different than my male counterpart. He's looking hard and stern, and he will tell them, I'm not taking care of that. Me, they come up to me and say, oh, well, I need you to take care of something. I'm like, all right, my face changed, and I'm pleasant, I'll help out, but I'm not allowed to have the same facial expressions as a male. And it's only because I picked it up from being around nothing but men.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still straight, sexuality straight, all of that, but still, it's that standard how a woman is supposed to be soft and gentle and
Yeah.
and almost like it's easy to run over a woman, but in our positions, being that the higher you get up, like especially in management or leadership, it's almost like if we don't stand firm or strong and confident in what we say,
Yeah.
you're going to get torn out,
Yeah. You
especially
get
if
ran
it's
over.
male dominant. Getting ran over. It's a male dominant, world or position. I worked in companies such as like UPS and AT&T, strong male dominance in HR higher up positions and so forth. And you have to stand firm and strong. But still, the double standard is it's okay for this man to do this, but it's not okay or this male counterpart to do or speak or enunciate his words, and he still get promoted.
Yeah.
He may even get, treated a little bit different, So, or then now we have this sexualized piece. And I don't know if we're going to highlight this. I had to introduce this male dominant world, the non-binary folks and the transgender, so forth. I had to introduce that because that's the world we live in. We have to be conscious of all of that now.
Yep.
So we have a triple standard that we have to figure out. Like, is this a triple standard now since we have a transgender male or female? What are the standard? What are we looking at in terms of how they lead? We have to eliminate and erase biases when we deal with these people that make the choices or what have you. But how do you gauge that and say that's not fair? That's not fair that they get treated a certain way and we're not, or they're going to address it either way in the community, and their voices are heard. Seem like.
Here's a question on double standards, because we talked about hair, and anybody who has any type of, identity or understanding of Black culture understands that a Black woman's hair is a big part of her identity and her crown. It is. Man, I tell you what I love about my daughter. My daughter, both of them, man, they taught me something. I'll just share it. My oldest daughter cut her hair off, cut it off. My youngest, her hair fell out her freshman year, 2 days before she shows up on campus at Florida State. Messed her up. She had beautiful hair. But my oldest daughter, because she had already cut hers, helped my youngest daughter work through it and taught her how to rock it. My oldest daughter just cut her hair like 2 weeks ago. And she said, she's like, Dad, my hair does not define me. She's like, I'm not going to be that. She's like, I don't like taking care of it. I don't like doing this. I don't like doing that. And I just like to be able to get up and go and wash it. And, and she has a texture hair that allows her to do certain things with it. I get it. But I understand the point being, for many Black women, that is a huge, huge part of their esteem builder, their identity, who they are. So the double standard I have is it okay for Black men to wear hair pieces and dye their beards?
Which is happening now.
Oh, that is such a double standard. Listen, because now we're we're hearing so much from men that they don't like the weaves and the, I've heard that, and I just cut my hair maybe like 2 months ago. So I cut it all off, start all over,
Yeah.
and I do that often. So I'll rock it one way and I'll cut it all off. But I do hear a lot of men express that they don't like the weaves and the lashes and so on and so forth. So I do think it's a double standard that it is acceptable. And I know not all men do. Like, so listen, my husband, he has gray in his beard. You can't he ain't getting ready to put nothing in his beard to make it
Yeah.
any darker than it is. It is what it is. It's gonna grow as it comes out of his chin, out of his face. But it is definitely a double standard now that I see men who put the biogen in their hair, they put the biogen in their beards. You now have men who we talk about the whole, and listen, this is trend. I'm just only mentioning it because it's trending, where Meg in her new disc record, she talked about men in the industry who are now getting surgeries. And so there's a lot of talk against women who get the BBLs and the lipo. And so, but you now have men who are now following that very same trend. It's just not talked about.
Yeah,
We
men,
don't
men
talk about
getting chest implants, getting penis implants, men who are literally getting
sketching.
hair pieces glued down,
Steve
right? I saw
Harvey.
the videos, like they get, and then the barber lines it up, fades it. You be like, yo, that's a hair piece.
Yeah.
And then you see these men, like I'm 53, I got gray. It is. I used to dye it all the way up until like 50, man. I would try, but I was like, it is what it is now
It
at
is
this
what it
point,
is.
right?
Yeah.
But I see men in their 50s and 60s, man, older than me, right? Hair jet black, beard jet black. I said, dude, you ain't got no gray hair at this age?
None. Yeah.
None? Right?
Yeah.
Now, celebrities do it. Will Smith's notorious for dyeing his stuff every new movie, right? He's
Yeah.
notorious. Will is all gray. Deion Sanders, all gray. He'll
Okay.
tell you he dyed his. But you go look at a man, you go what you get up close on those beards, and you'll see their beard really is down here. The rest of this is colored in. Like
Yeah.
it'll be patches. He'd be like, oh, dude, that ain't even your beard. That's colored in.
Yeah.
Right? The lines are colored in, the hairline is for look, my barber, I had him do it for me a couple times, and he was like, you sure you want that? I was like, yeah. And then he was like, look, Rob, this way is it, your hairline is your hairline, right? I was like,
Right.
you know what, dude? I don't want to be outside in the rain.
And it's like coming down.
My
Yeah.
start running down because it happened, dude. I was out somewhere and I wiped it. And I was like, oh,
Right. No, that's
but
not a good look. I mean, I think it's freeing for us when I mean, this kind of leads into the age thing too, because there's a lot of ageism that happens in our community, right? Like
yep,
once a woman turns 40,
Yeah.
she's no more good, she can't have no more babies, she's ran through, you hear all of those things. But I think there's something so freeing about us as women, men as well, when we just embrace who and what we are. And Angelica knows this. I've always rocked braids or a curly sew-in or something of some so nature, so much so that people assume, certain styles were my real hair. And it was just free. And I'm just like, I'm gonna cut all my hair off and start all over.
there you go.
And so now everybody's like, that's your hair or you cut it all off. I'm like, I probably was wearing a curly weave at the time, but but this is my hair. I did cut it all off to start over. And so I just think we got to embrace ourselves as we age, and we age beautifully, we age gracefully. And so we should embrace that. Should
You know what I'm
embrace.
laughing about? It's two things I'm laughing about. So I don't know if you all remember, you may remember when I had regular locks and my locks was like at 20, it was like 24 inches long. I got
Yeah,
it
they grew
really, really,
long.
I let them grow, but this is my third set and it's the sister locks. You can't really tell. Sister locks is more like your real hair type of thing. Funny story though. Well, the first one isn't. I went for a job interview. It was for a managerial maybe HR manager type job for a major corporation. I'm not gonna mention their name, what they are. But I had this HR director in the midst of the interview actually said to me, this is when I had my 24 inches. She actually said, "There's something else you can do to your hair when you go to your next level interview." And I'm like,
Oh no.
no.
Oh no.
No, it's nothing I can do. This is my hair. This is who I am. I can't disguise it. I can't do nothing with it. So I can't hide, so this is me. I was very upset. I was very offended by that. And for me, I did not want to work for that company. It was a major company, great opportunity to be an HR business partner, great money, but I didn't want to work for that company instantly.
Was that a Black woman who said that?
It was the Black woman that said it.
Because what I'm finding is it is more of us that have a problem with us.
Oh man, that's a whole nother subject. We talking
That's
about
a whole,
gatekeepers. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
because we've been conditioned.
Yeah, because she had on a weave. I mean, she had on a wig or something, and my hair at the time was too long for me to try to tuck it in. So me being the person that I am, I can, with sister locks especially, I can switch it up a lot, and that's the fun part about having sister locks. Just recently when we had like negative 15-degree weather, I like to wear wigs. I purposely would wear the wig, and I would tell everybody at the office it's my hat. So those that know me, okay, she got her big wig on, it's her hat. It's my hat. It keep my head nice and warm. It's my hat all day. Well, one of our top executives walked through the door. He's seen my hair like this before, regular, and then he's seen the hat. So I confused him, and he so happened to be a brother. He so happened to be a brother, but I really confused him. So one day he came in when I had my hair back like this, and I had it like all crinkled and everything after having it under my hat. He said, "Oh, so your hair is different today?" I said, "Yeah, that was just my hat." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, it was my hat. It was like, I was just rocking my hat because it was negative 15 and I'm in the office." He just walked away. He said, "I'm gonna walk away." Then I'm about to laugh really hard in my office. I heard him go into his office. He was screaming, laughing so hard because he just like, he was just surprised that he's like, back in the day, as a Black women, we were very sensitive about our hair with our weaves. We didn't want a boy to know. Yeah, we I don't care, but you don't want a guy to know that it's a wig. But remember in the 90s, 80s, 90s, when the weaves was really coming out, we didn't want anybody to know that we have a weave on, even if they knew. We was like, we try to disguise it. The ponytails, that's different. You wear a weave ponytail. Okay. Obviously it's probably not your hair because we cut it and design it and everything. That was me. I was the weave ponytail queen. But when it came down to like our hair and who we are as women, I've been natural since 97, going to Indiana State. I came in Indiana State natural. And I can remember, there's a whole nother subject somewhat, but I can remember getting laughed at by the Indianapolis girls. And they'll say, "Oh yeah, them Gary girls, they walk around with afros. Who wears afros right now?" I mean, they all had weaves and their hair was all long and cute.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I just don't put chemicals in my hair. I thought that was normal. And they low-key called us woke. They said, "Oh yeah, them Gary girls, I guess they woke." Yeah. I didn't quite understand what woke the term meant, but I'm like, I just know that when you put perm in your hair, how it made me feel. It used to feel like my brain was on fire or something like that. So fast forward to today, it's a trend. Now we have sixth graders wearing the units. And I'm like, oh, they wear, I remember sixth grade, I didn't want anybody to know I had a piece of my hair. Oh, they wear the whole wig now. And just with the lashes and the nails and all of that is what they see. And it's, is non-binary. It's not just a girl.
I'll tell you what's interesting, and it doesn't make it right or wrong. But here's some advice I gave my daughters. Just my daughters. Anybody else, you might have different advice. I said, understand men are visual. So whatever you sold him, that's what he's expecting. Whatever you sold him, that's what he's expecting. So when he went out and he saw you and that's what he liked, don't show up different because he's going to go look for that again somewhere else. So sell him on who you are.
Right.
Right. And that's the advice I would give any woman who would be open to hear it. Is like, look, you're beautiful. God made you. You can enhance you, but don't overhaul you. Right. because we are visual. Like we are visual. And so when we look, we go like, woo wee. And then we wake up the next day or 2 weeks later, you don't look like that.
Yeah.
We like, oh no, I'm out. I'm out. Right. Or I'm gonna go find that again. And unfortunately, here's the double standard for men, right? Well, shit, I didn't put so much time into it. I'm gonna get something out of this. So I'm gonna stick around long enough. Because she done tricked me, right? She done trick. Listen, I can tell this story because my wife did it to me. But I married her because God told me to.
Amen.
My wife's father had colored eyes, like gray, green, blue, whatever, right? All of his brothers. So when I met my wife, she had them too. Makes sense. Your father got them. Your nephew got them. All your uncles got them. Your father, real life. Man, it was like 2 or 3 months dating. She came over one day and she used to sleep in them. She used to sleep in her contacts. Man, I saw her without her contacts. I was mad, y'all. Mad. I was like, yo, them were contacts? She was like, yeah. I was like, yo, you wrong for that. Like you literally took, I thought those were your eyes. I done started thinking if I have kids, they gonna have the eyes. Like I done went down the whole plane, man. Fortunate enough, my first daughter got the eyes, but she got them from her grandpa. So God, thank you for that. But again, it's one of those double standards because men want beautiful women.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right. But then we go, yeah, but we wanted beauty this way. Right. And you got to look like this all the time. And you go, well, hold on, man. Like, yo, you either blessed with it or you buy it. It's one of the two. Right. And beauty. Here's the other thing. Beauty, what's beautiful for one man may not be beautiful to another. That's the other thing I wish I could impart in women is if one man doesn't think what you possess is beautiful, then he ain't the one for you. Because when I was younger, I only associated short haircuts with college professors.
Wow.
Y'all remember back then? That's only, and they were like so Afrocentric, like, yeah, nah. But now I see it, and women who rock it and embrace it and love it. I'm like, yo, that's cool with me because I love the confidence that it takes. It doesn't take anyone. It doesn't take away from anyone else. But I think just as I grew and mature, but I'll also understand the pressure now that women have and why their hair is such a big part of their identity because society, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, starts brainwashing them at an early age about what beauty looks like, what they see on TV, long hair,
social media,
Instagram.
right.
This is what sells. The people on TV that are movie stars, ain't none of them got short hair, right? They all got long hair.
Right.
All the girls in the videos got long hair. And so they start to think, if I'm going to have that type of life, then I too have to have this. And it's such a double standard. Here's my last double standard topic for today before we wrap up. And then we're on the debrief. I want you both to share all your events that you're working on. There's this trend. And I've had quite a few young ladies tell me this who are in their 30s. I can date the daddy or the son, right? Women in their 30s, man, they got the sweet spot. They can date the daddy or the son legitimately. But if men do that, oh, he dating that old woman, right? Or he ought to be ashamed himself dating that younger girl. He in his 30s or 40s, he dating that girl who 26, 25. Why is there a double standard? Or do you think there is one?
I think when I have seen that, again, and I've seen it under the context of the gender war back and forth. And so what often has been said about women such as ourselves who are, 40, we ain't in our 30s anymore, we're 40, that we're old. We have nothing to offer a man, especially single women, right? So I mean, Angelica and I are kind of out of the mix. We're married, we're over 40 and married, but for women who still are single in their 40s, there's a perception that she doesn't have anything to offer a man, and men don't want what the baggage that comes with a woman at that age. And so it's better to date younger women. She can still have kids. She can still do such and such. And so they toss. It goes back to the ageism. They toss older women to the side. I see it as, and I'm gonna get a little bit raw too.
Yeah,
So
come
when I
on.
see men date younger women, I see it as a control factor. But when I see women date younger men, typically she just want her back blown out. I'm gonna just be honest.
So for a man, he wants to control. For a woman, she just oh, that's a double standard.
Or it could be controlling too. I mean, she might
I mean,
see
she could control too, right? Right.
yeah, like he's a little puppy.
She wants to get she wants to beat down and then send him home to go play video games.
She wants to beat down
Right.
and she wants you to go home at the end of the night. She ain't tripping because she didn't did all her cooking and stuff like that. But I'm also I've also been told, like younger men that have tried to hit on me or whatever, that the trend for them in wanting to date older women is because the women in their generation, they're not doing the things like the cooking, the
They're
cleaning,
not.
and the nurturing, and they don't see that because they're not being taught or bred to do that, right?
Right.
I feel like we as Gen Xers, we're the last of the what I would call traditional generation,
Yep.
right? Like my mama, my grandmother, that's who I grew up under. They were cooking, cleaning, and that's what was passed, a trait that was passed down to me, where this younger generation, they're not into that thing. So men, I'm hearing a lot of younger men say they like the older women because that's what they get from
Yeah.
older women.
Because it reminds them of their mama.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be nobody's mama.
Yeah. We don't want to be
mean,
nobody's mom.
Yeah. You know, and that's the thing. I mean, again, it's a double standard for many reasons. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes because I've married twice, two
Yeah.
older guys,
Yeah.
and I do look for my father-like qualities. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like my
That's
father
true.
has an engineering degree, you know, and he was in the mill, so he did his 30 years, but he has military background. He fixes everything, you know, real smart guy. And I look for that in my potential husband with the hope that he can be over 6 feet tall. Unfortunately, both times, both my husband been about 5'6", you know, 5'5", still love him. But anyway, that's where it gets kind of sketchy because we look at the whole ageism piece. I've heard from my brothers, they usually date younger girls, and this is coming from my brothers, my blood brothers. They all say, well, you know, I like to get them young because they can keep me not feeling like I'm old or older or whatever. When he see the hairs popping out, oh, I got my little young thing right here. But what my brothers is, again, my brothers is still in our generation. They get a little bit turned off with the girls that, you know, that want to do the BBLs and the disfigurement of the body. They have the body dysmorphia issue going on. They get turned off by that because they still want that. They want that maturity, but then yet some want the maturity piece of the woman, like loving, embracing herself and so forth. But then they want that younger woman. Some of you know, the guys that I know that, you know, they don't want any more kids when they hit, like, you know,
Right.
in your 50s. Look, I want to make sure you're done. And in my case, I've still stayed pretty fertile up to, you know, 43. I'm having another child. So that'll throw anybody off a little bit. Like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be in your 40s. You think it's gonna cut it
be
off?
done.
I'm still fertile. But you know, that's not the case for every woman, you know, may not experience that. The other piece is, though, from a female perspective, we go younger, and I'm just saying from female perspective, because in our minds, we be like, oh boy, he's having old man problems. You know what I'm saying? A guy can't perform the things they used to be able
We
to
be
perform.
wanting our back blown out. I'm gonna just keep it real. A lot of times.
That's the mission. You know, younger dude, I know he gonna, hey, handle your business. Handle your business. You come over, do what you gotta do. Okay, you can go now.
And then
And
leave.
that's it.
I don't need you sticking around here wanting to play video games. We ain't gonna have no conversation about what you.
Listen, once you get this, I always say that. I tell my husband this, and I'm playful, or I'll tell my girlfriend. I was like, if I was still single at this age, I would be a beast. I would be a 40-plus-year-old beast. Like, I'm softer because I'm married, and there's, you know, I've learned that you got to cater to your husband. There's certain things that my husband needs. There's certain things that are his love language. So I'm soft to that.
Yeah.
If I wasn't married though, and I had to be out here in these streets, I would be a beast. These men would be like, "Ooh,
You know what? I feel the
break my
same
back and
way.
go
I've
home."
been with Robin. It'll be 28 years this year. And you know, hopefully we'll ride this thing until the wheels fall off. And if she ever decide that she didn't want to do this, you know, I would never ever get married again. I
Right.
would never do it again. Not because I don't believe in love, it's because who I am now is very different than who I was when I'm younger.
Yeah.
And my expectations
Yeah.
of what I would want in life and in a mate, and I don't mean selfishly, like my expectations, like I know what I'm gonna bring to the table. I know what I'm gonna bring. And if you not matching that energy, if you not matching that ability to love and care and work through back, if you can't do that,
Right.
I'm not gonna be the one, because the moment I see a crack in your armor, I'm dumping. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
You
would
don't
be
have-
better off just being by myself, right?
Mhm.
Date every now and then. I wouldn't have a whole thing, but whoever was in my life,
Mhm.
man,
Yeah.
man,
I say the same thing. Oh,
man. What I know now that I didn't know then,
Right.
whoever was in my life, I'd be like, listen, I'm telling you, don't blow it. I promise you. Because you blow it, you're gonna be like, golly.
mm-hmm. Low tolerance. Low tolerance.
Yeah, that's what I was about, that low tolerance piece. When you get to that
Yeah.
age, and I guess it's right because me and Nemia, we head into your direction, Rob. Getting close to 50, I
Yeah.
am learning that your tolerance is like it's
Real
getting
low.
thinner, and in terms of certain things, you just not
Yeah.
you know you're not going to deal with it.
But I also, the flip side of that, I thank God for my husband, because as much as a beast I would be if God knew what he was doing when he connected us, because that made me, the generation now calls it your soft girl era, or what have you. But that allowed me to soften, to be more cognizant of the man's perspective,
Awesome.
to understand things from his angle, from his, how he feels and his emotions and so on and so forth. And I think that when people don't get to experience that, um, going back to our original conversation, when people don't get to experience the love in its essence, and a person just having your back, and a person making you soft, and a person, being your best friend, that resentment against a whole gender of individual is easy to develop, because you never experienced that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say my platform, I can never be a male basher. I'm married to a man that treats me like a queen. And I try to give that back to him. As his queen, I'm gonna treat you like a king. And people that don't get to experience that, they have a harder edge, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, before we wrap up, I just want to do a recap. Angelica, what you got coming up?
What you got coming up in terms of Zeta? We have some scholarship opportunities. We have national scholarship opportunities coming up. Our actual deadline is February 1st, but still just pretty much getting those applications out there from a national standpoint. And then we have our step show coming up March 9th at Northwest High School. At I believe it's 4 p.m. Northwest High School. I was hoping, I'm really working on a celebrity to do the MCN, but for scholarship, our goal is to raise at least $25,000 in scholarship for the IPS schools as well as the surrounding Indianapolis area.
Awesome. I'll have that stuff dropped in here. And then Nemia, listen, one time talk about the book and the podcast, and I'll make sure I drop the information for both right here.
Yeah, so the podcast is called High Heels and Lipstick Conversations. You can catch me on YouTube, all social media platforms at She Is Nemia. So I can drop the link to the podcast. And we talk about a plethora of topics that are specific or would touch females. We don't leave our brothers out, right? So I've had a couple shows where I've had men takeovers, where they come and they voice their opinion and how they see things from their perspective. So it's called High Heels and Lipstick Conversations. I also have a book that you can find out now. You can actually go to Amazon. You can put in my name, search my name, Nemia Carmes. It's called 7 Lessons for Her. It's all about healing, empowerment, and restoration. So it really speaks to the woman's heart on how to get from that place that we talked about trauma, how to get from that place of trauma and cross over to a place where you're healed and you're whole and you're full. And that's going to impact your relationships around you. That's going to impact your purpose and just being out to carry out your purpose healthy and whole. I'm in the midst of writing right now. And so this spring, I will have another book that's released. And it's called Wisdom Every Grown Ass Woman Should Know. So there's a
Wow.
little bit of wisdom that I am sharing, or things that are important for us as women to know. And then this spring, April 20th, and I'll share this flyer with you. In the Northwest Indiana area, I am putting on an authors showcase and women's empowerment expo. And so I'm inviting authors, women who have written books themselves, to come and showcase their work, their project. And then women entrepreneurs, if they have brands, they have products, so on and so forth, they can come and be a vendor. And then there's a couple workshop sessions in there. If you want to become a self-published author yourself, you want to start a brand, a marketable brand. So we're going to have some individuals come and speak to some of those topics. So that's April 20th. And I will more than happy to share the flyer with you.
Well, listen, for everyone watching the show, as you see, I dropped the stuff in right here. But Angelica, Nemia, this has been an amazing conversation. I literally enjoyed it. Like, we could go on for hours, man. I think we're going to have to do this again. We are going to have to do this again.
Yes.
And we're going to go in harder next time. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to come prepared to talk about some of them BS things, man.
We was being HR professionals today, weren't
Yeah.
we?
We gonna go harder, man, next time. But I already know it's there. I sensed it. I was like, okay, this the warm up. This the warm up. But when we come back again, we going harder, because this the things with relationships, young people, like the generational differences, man, and then man, we as families and this. Oh my gosh, man, there's so much there. And then we're gonna talk about just being Black in corporate America.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna go ahead and say the things that other people wish they could say. And us being in HR, I tell people I got into HR because I wanted to be the gatekeeper of fairness for people who didn't have a voice. That's why I got into HR. I was either going to be a civil rights attorney, a politician, or an activist. I felt either, and I was like, well, what can I do to make money that won't land me in jail? I don't want to get shot, and I don't want to be involved in those scandals. And I was like, HR. But I got into it because I saw that was the place in the organization where I can influence making sure people were treated fair. And that's why I got into it.
Yep.
All right. Well,
it's
ladies,
really a ministry. Yeah.
It is.
Listen, it is. And I'm not, everything that I've been through, man, I'm telling you, sometimes I sit back and I go, God, you amazing, because I ain't supposed to be here. I ain't supposed to be here. It's as many times as I fell down, and as many times as I was kicked down, you still allow me to get back up. So
that's right.
Listen, ladies, thank you for joining the show. Send me all the stuff. I'm gonna drop it in. It has truly been an honor, and we're gonna do this again. And maybe we'll do a private podcast and invite some crazy people to the show. It just won't make it public, but maybe we'll do one of them. Y'all know what I'm talking about, because I can't include it in here, but maybe we'll do one of them.
Yeah, invite me to
we'll put it on a private platform for only people we know that they can go watch it, right? So or we charge for that one, because people, they pay for subscriptions. That's what this corporate thing don't work out. I know where I'm going. I'm doing private platforms, and I'm gonna create a OnlyFans page where I only walk around in gray sweatpants. I'm cooking. I'm cooking in gray sweats. I'm doing everything in gray sweat. I told my wife, I said, if this don't work out, I'm getting the OnlyFans page, and I'm gonna have on all gray sweatpants.
You gotta get a bunch of followers.
Right. Listen, all I need to do is get 1,000, people on LinkedIn, my professional community, For all those ones that
Yep.
had their thoughts, they can never say it on LinkedIn. I was just like, look, $50 a month and everything you ever want to ask me, you can. That's all I need. Well, ladies, listen, thank y'all. I appreciate it. Please take care. And I'll be sure to share all your information, and hopefully I'll see you again. For those of you watching, man, I hope you enjoyed the episode. It truly was fun for me. Probably one of the best ones I've ever filmed. And then remember to like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you next time on the In His Voice podcast. We'll see you later.